Hi, Mr. Rich. This isn't my room, so ignore the mess. I just don't have much time, and so I have to get this done in a friend's room. Question number 1. So the writing assignments that I've had at Georgetown have pretty much been this similar kind of assignments that I had at collegiate. But I think the biggest thing that I didn't do at collegiate that I've encountered in college is big research papers. I know freshman year with Mr. Jackson in bio, we did the big research paper on a disease. And I think in HADA, sophomore year with Mr. Arnold, I had to do 1 or 2 research papers, but none of them compared to the kind of research papers that I've had to do here. In a lot of my history classes, that's the only kind of writing that I've had to do, and I had absolutely no experience with citing in Chicago style, so I think that you need to try and do more writing assignments like that, and also longer assignments. For example, at the end of this term, I have a 20-page history research paper due, and at collegiate, I think the longest paper I ever had to write was 5 pages. So longer assignments, more research assignments. Other than that, I haven't had any creative writing assignments except for in my foreign language classes. But I'd say that those are some of my favorite things that I did at collegiate. They were the assignments that made me enjoy writing. But some of the more helpful English papers that I had in high school were the OPs with Miss Calderwood, the 1-page papers, which is basically close readings of the works that we read in advanced lit. And in the literature class that I'm in this semester, we basically have to do the same thing. I have, every week, I have a 1-page paper on some type of assignment we've read. So those have been really helpful. Also, my longer papers in my literature class have just been extended close readings of a poem or a section of a novel. And so, good job, Miss Calderwood. I felt really prepared. Those were much easier because I was exposed to those in AP Lit last year. I'd say that a lot of the writing that I've had to do in college has been much more traditional than the types of pieces that I had to do at collegiate, especially junior year during American Lit. We had a lot more creative assignments, which I thought were fun, and I learned about American literature in a more interesting way, but I don't think that some of those projects necessarily translated to college as well. And I haven't had to do any collaborative writing assignments. No collaboration. Definitely the interaction that you have with your professors is much less than the interaction that we have with teachers at collegiate, but I think that's also on the student. If you go to office hours, you can get that same level of interaction, but if you don't, then you're kind of on your own. Well, at Georgetown at least, this is question number 2, Georgetown at least, all the English classes that I've been in, all my writing assignments have been graded by the professor. I haven't had to deal with a graduate assistant. Only in history classes or big lecture classes have I had graduate assistants, big lecture classes for math and science and things, have I had a TA grading my assignments. And the professors are really cool. If you don't understand something that they've said on your paper, I always go to office hours and just ask them. And the professors are also really great. You can send them drafts, or some professors only want you to send thesis or the first page of your paper, but they always are really good about getting back to you and giving you feedback. This is question number 3. I'm not a huge fan of analytical writing. I definitely prefer more creative writing. I also don't really enjoy reports or research papers. But I think in college, just because the amount of writing that I have to do is so much greater than the amount of writing that I had to do in high school, I've gotten a whole lot better about just cranking papers out. I can write really quickly now, whereas in high school I would spend hours and hours and hours belaboring over paper. but I still don't particularly enjoy writing. This is question number 4. For me, it really depends on the professor. I've done pretty well. I've gotten mostly A's and A minuses on all my papers that I've turned in so far this year. And I think that that's in part due to the good foundation that I got from collegiate, like just grammatically, and like I know how to like analyze things from Miss Calderwood. Also, talking to the professor, I think can help boost your grade. Like if you go to office hours or send them a draft, I think you're more likely to get an A than if you just don't have any contact with them, because then they know that you put in the effort. I think the standards are different than the standards at collegiate. They care more about argument, or at least the majority of the professors I've had have cared more about the argument that my papers are making rather than the structure or like the level of writing itself. I mean, that also varies by professor. But most of the time, the comments that I get on my papers aren't about the style as much as they are about the argument. And I think that maybe because my style of writing is at a good place because of the classes that I had at collegiate, but also just because like for my literature classes they're more interested on whether I'm able to analyze what we're reading at a deeper level versus can I make pretty sentences. Number 5. This totally depends on the class, but literally all of my homework except for in language classes and math classes has been reading homework, reading assignments. And it's a lot of people don't do them, but if you do the reading assignments, it's really helpful. So I think that classes like Miss Brendage's class where she had the reading quizzes and just to like make sure that you were reading it were really helpful because they like instilled in me like this, I don't know, like now I do the readings. For my literature class this semester and last semester, this semester everything I read in my literature class has been fictional. Something interesting about my literature class is it's a seminar that's crossed with history, so I'm learning about 18th century literature through the lens of the history as well. So like I'll come into class and I have 2 professors. One is a chair in the English department, one is a chair in the history department. And so if I have 2 readings for one day, one will be like a novel, and then the other will be like a primary source or a secondary source about something that the novel relates to historically. So my experience is a little different than most kids. But most of my friends who are in normal literature classes here, I think everything that they read, or my friends, everything that they read has been fictional. I don't think they read many like historical accounts or secondary sources or much literary criticism, but that really depends on the class. Also, my literature classes have been different because they've been focused on the 16th or the 18th century, so I'm not reading much contemporary stuff. In my theology class, we've read some more contemporary novels that have to do with like religious themes, but we talk about them more for the ideas than we do the writing. Number 6, I would say reading homework now is completely different than reading homework in high school because literally like all of my homework is reading homework, whereas in high school a lot of my homework was worksheets or I don't know, workbook pages, other things of that nature. And professors here don't spell out the reading as much as teachers in high school did, so if you don't do the reading you can be pretty lost in lecture. But I think that the teachers I had at collegiate pretty well established in me like a sense of like do this reading. Oops. Number 7, now that I know what college reading is like, what would I have done more or less of? I think I wish that I had done different types of assignments. I feel like freshman and sophomore year, we did the same kind of analyses. What's the word? Brendy?
What?
Is it analysis or analyses?
Analysis or analysis?
Analysis or analyses?
Analyses?
Analyses? Is that a word?
Analysis.
Analysis? Whatever. I wish that we had done more literary analysis freshman and sophomore year in a different kind of way. I feel like maybe freshman and sophomore year we talked more about plot than we did about structure. And a lot of what my literature professors, like, they understand that we know, like, it's understood that we understand the plot of the novel. As long as you do the reading, you'll understand the plot. But they care more about how the ideas the author's trying to get across, how they get them across. And I know that we did a lot of this senior year in AP Lit, but I think if we had started establishing that maybe from freshman year on a smaller scale, that could be helpful, just so when we get to AP Lit, we're not overwhelmed by all the new concepts and ideas that Ms. Calderwood throws at us, which are super helpful. And they've definitely, a lot of kids here were not exposed to that kind of literary criticism in high school, and so I definitely had a leg up. But I think if we start doing that freshman year, we will really have a handle on it by senior year, and then when we get to college, people will really easily be able to look at literature in that through that lens. I wish that we had done less book reviews, maybe. I know that those are helpful because they let the teacher know that the kid has actually read the book, but I don't think that they're super helpful in the long run. I don't want to. I know that I haven't had to do any creative writing in college yet, but I don't want to say that we shouldn't do that in high school, because that was my personal favorite part of high school, and it's what made me enjoy writing and enjoy English class. And I think I would have gotten burned out if I didn't have that time to be creative. And I think it helped not just my creative writing, but my analytical writing and my all types of writing, just because I enjoyed writing, so I wrote more. Number 8. Well, I don't plan on being an English major, but Georgetown has a core curriculum, so I am required to take a certain number of literature and English classes. So I will definitely be taking more writing classes over the next 3 years. I don't know if I necessarily want to go into a career related to reading and writing, but of course every career at some level is related to reading and writing, so I think it's really important to have a good basis and be able to communicate your ideas well. And I think collegiate definitely prepared me for that, and Georgetown is just extending all the lessons that I learned in high school. Yeah, I think it's more than just about writing, but just about even just speaking. Through English classes, you have to learn how to articulate your ideas in an eloquent way, in a way that makes sense. And I think that's important. Cool. Thanks, Mr. Rich. I'm sorry this is really rambly. Bye.